2022 is coming to a close, and it was certainly a year for video games. I can't say it was a bad year because we got two highly critically acclaimed games this year with some other bangers, but also we had some very high expectations for gaming this year, and those expectations weren't completely met in all regards. But regardless, this was still a pretty decent year for video games, and there are still 10 games and more that I really enjoyed this year, but I had to break it down to 10. Now, just a disclaimer, I did not play every single game this year, so I won't be including Xenoblade, Tunic, or Neon White, or other games you might have expected, you know? I'm also only going to include remakes if they do enough to set itself apart from the original. So that means, unfortunately, I won't be including Crisis Core Reunion, even though that is a banger remake. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into this. But before we do that, you know what to do. Be sure to just subscribe and hit the bell and leave a comment, or I will take out your Adam's apple.
Number 11. Your father will die.
Wait, what? 11? Well, I couldn't really decide, between 9 and 10, because there are 3 options, but only 2 spots. So, consider this one kind of an honorable mention that I kind of put on the list, because that makes sense. Look, I just wanted to talk about it, alright? Rarely does a game's concept alone sell me on it, but with Stray, I might have come for the concept, but I stayed for everything else. In Stray, you play as a nameless cat that we don't really know much about. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? It's up for your interpretation. And you play in a post-apocalyptic world where all who exist are human-like robots, parasites, and of course, just a few stray cats. The game takes advantage of its concept by having puzzles that you need to solve in ways that only a cat would. Not to mention, I think Stray might have one of the best stories of any game in 2022. And you got a solid indie game with Stray that takes its concept and goes beyond with it.
I wanted to give to you, the last part of your notes here, the significance spiritually of the number 10 in the Bible.
Remember back in 2017 just how bizarre it was that we got a Mario and Rabbids crossover that was like an XCOM style game? And even more surprised that it ended up being as good as it was? And I'm even more surprised to see that we got a sequel and the magic is not lost. Now, I've heard a lot of people share disappointment with how this doesn't necessarily feel like a Mario and Rabbids crossover, but rather a game with Mario characters and the Rabbids. While I understand that, and it certainly is apparent, I'd say the gameplay more than makes up for that issue. As much as I liked Kingdom Battle's grid-based combat, I just like this type of combat a lot more, and the exploration of each world is a lot of fun. And while I said it doesn't quite feel like a crossover as much as the first game did, I really still do love all the character interactions, whether it be during the cutscenes or other dialogue throughout the game. Throw that in with the new party members and an interesting story, and you have a fantastic game that I recommend if you are willing to ignore who made it. I almost didn't include Kirby and the Forgotten Land on this list. Not because it is particularly bad or anything. In fact, I said it is the best Kirby game out there in my review, and I'm sticking to that, but I feel like just about every other game on this list has had, I feel a bigger impact. However, sometimes we need a game like Kirby. A game that won't really challenge us, a game that won't have us playing for too awfully long, but will always keep its charm. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was Kirby's long-awaited jump into the third dimension, and it did not disappoint. The little pink puffball transitioned seamlessly, as the copy abilities feel really nice in 3D, and the new mouthful mode adds a lot more to this game. You want to become a traffic cone? A car? A flight of stairs? A vending machine? You can do that in this game, and it's awesome. Not to mention, it has what I think is possibly the coolest boss fight in any Kirby game, and I'd say Kirby and the Forgotten Land is just a straight-up delight.
So I'm going to be giving this flavor 8.5 out of 10 scoops.
You know, it honestly feels surreal that we got Bayonetta 3 this year, after Platinum went dark on it for years and released some other games and shit. And it seems like Bayonetta 3 was kind of forgotten, but I didn't forget. Bayonetta 3 is an absolute joy to play. I really believe it has some of the best combat in the entire series, in a series known for some great combat. There is nothing more fun than just beating up enemies in this game, and everything feels more fluent, and a lot of the new monsters you can turn into are also really cool. Not to mention, there are also other sections of the game, some where you play as new character Viola, and it is more or less the same game, and others where you play as Jean, and while they were certainly not a highlight of this game, I wouldn't mind seeing a more fleshed out spin-off game where you play as Jean and it plays a little bit more like how it does in this game. Additionally, while the story doesn't take full advantage of the concept of the multiverse, the end makes it all worth it. Overall, when you look at everything that Bayonetta 3 does right, I think it was well worth the wait.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
Say what you want about multiverses. You can say it's a dead game. You can say it's a Smash clone. You can say that the last few additions to the game were not as exciting. But I had so much fun with it, and I think it absolutely deserved a spot on this list. Multiverses is what happens when you take Smash, but instead of Nintendo characters duking it out, you take a company as broad as Warner Brothers, and you have them duke it out. There aren't too many other games this year where I was able to play with my friends and just fuck around, just have a laugh. Likewise, there aren't too many other games this year that had me on the edge of my seat guessing what character will be added in next. And most importantly, there are no other games where you can make LeBron James kill Superman by dunking on him. The fact that this is mostly a team-based fighting game also makes certain characters unique from others. Throw that in with the constant updates, balance patches, and characters being added to the game basically every time there is a balance patch, and the fact that it's a free-to-play game, and Multiverses is an absolute blast to play.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
A Plague Tale Innocence is a game I did not play till years after it came out, and instantly fell in love with it. And I am so happy that its sequel, A Plague Tale Requiem, is getting a lot more attention because it does exactly what the first game did, but better. It's longer, has a bigger budget, fleshes out the characters a lot more, expands on the main brother and sister relationship, and really hit me when things went sideways, and just does everything the first game did, but better. While not really a horror game, A Plague Tale Requiem does suspense and tension better than some traditional horror games out there. You play as a 16-year-old girl who is looking after her 8-year-old brother while trying to hide and sneak up on armored soldiers when all you have is a slingshot and a rock. At times you'll get a knife that you can only use once, or a crossbow with a limited amount of arrows, but you don't always get those, which makes this game feel all the more suspenseful. Throw that in with the music as well as the story told in this game, and I really feel A Plague Tale Requiem is a must-play from this year.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Poor Horizon. Such an awesome new franchise for Sony, but keeps releasing just before another game that is very similar and has more hype behind it releases. Luckily though, I haven't forgotten just how good Horizon Forbidden West is. For as good as Zero Dawn is, Forbidden West is better in just about every single way. The combat is a lot nicer, the environments are absolutely beautiful. This might be one of the best looking games like I've ever played. Each area in this game looks like a work of art that you can interact with. There are times where you can fly around and just look at everything, and I wish I didn't lose all my footage, because I would have loved to show you just how good this game looks at times, but instead I gotta rely on this post-game roaming around footage. Oh well. The only reason Horizon Forbidden West is not higher is cause I feel the story is a bit of a downgrade. I don't know, it just focused a lot on characters that I just didn't care that much about and dragged at times, but other than that, Horizon Forbidden West is a must-play for any PS4 or PS5 owner. .mu. You know what? Whenever they make a new game from an IP that has been dormant, I think after Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, I think I could say it's a good sign. You might be surprised to see TMNT this high up on this list, but I really think it deserves it, as it takes you back. I wasn't even a fetus when the original TMNT beat-em-ups came out, but Shredder's Revenge even took me back. This is some of the best 2D side-scrolling beat-em-up action I've ever played, with some banging music and colorful levels. Not to mention, all the characters in this game are a lot of fun. You have the 4 Ninja Turtles, but also April O'Neil and Splinter, and you even get to unlock Casey Jones. And if that's not fun enough, play this with friends. Up to 6 players, that is insane! The experience greatly improves with co-op. The only issue I really had with TMNT Shredder's Revenge is after I finished it, I wanted more. And not in a dissatisfied way, but in a I just want to play more of this game kind of way. Shredder's Revenge might just be a 2 to 3 hour game, but it's 2 to 3 hours that you all should experience. Kinda like how you probably didn't expect Shredder's Revenge to place so high, you probably didn't expect Live Alive to place this high either. But man, it deserves its spot. Maybe Live Alive shouldn't even be on this list, as it's a remake of an old Super Famicom JRPG from Square. However, this seems very different from the original version that got released nearly 30 years ago. And also, I've never actually heard of this game before this remake, so it's new to me. What makes Live Alive so great though? Well, Live Alive isn't your ordinary JRPG. It's not one continuous story with one continuous party and whatnot, but rather it is multiple stories that are all shorter, but each of them makes almost a completely different game. One story takes place in the future that culminates in a giant kaiju mech fight. One plays out almost like a fighting game. One takes place in the Wild West. One is mostly dialogue but tells such a nice story. One is like a horror game in disguise. I can go on and on and on about each of the stories in Live Alive, and I don't think any one of them was even okay. I think they're all good to perfection. I might have said different things in my review, but looking back, I had a smile on my face playing the game from beginning to end. And similarly to Shredder's Revenge, I just want more. I want to see Square do a Live Alive 2. Not to mention the music, the new voice acting, and the visuals. Live Alive is a JRPG that I think I can recommend to non-JRPG fans. It is one of the best remakes of all time, and it's only number 3.
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
When you guys clicked on this video, I know you knew number 1 came down to 2 different games. And it may surprise some of you, but it might not surprise others. But number 2 is Elden Ring. I know a lot of you probably have Elden Ring at number 1, and I understand it, and I'll explain myself a little bit later. I'm gonna come clean to you guys. While I have an infinite amount of respect for these games, I am just simply not built for any of the Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, or Sekiro games. Again, I admire them completely, but I'm not built for them, so it's a little harder for me to get into them. And while I'm still not quite built for Elden Ring, I cannot deny how much of a goddamn marvel this game is on basically every single level. There is truly nothing quite like Elden Ring. There is no open world quite like this one. There is no art style quite like this one. There are no bosses quite like the ones in Elden Ring. There is no Soulsborne or Souls-like game quite like this one. Elden Ring might be difficult, but it allows you to play the game in whatever order you like. You want to fight the main bosses? Go ahead. You want to fight the side bosses? Go ahead. You want to skip ahead to a part of the game that you are not supposed to be at yet and have no shot at beating any boss or fucking anyone because you are severely underpowered because you weren't supposed to go there yet? Go ahead. Let me tell you, even though I die a lot in Elden Ring, I can still turn it on and get sucked away for hours, just exploring the world, fighting enemies, and popping off real hard whenever I beat a boss. Like I already said, there is no game quite like Elden Ring. You can easily make a case for why it is one of the greatest games of all time. However, it only doesn't make it to number 1 because the game that is number 1 is definitely more my kind of game. But Elden Ring is without question a goddamn sight to behold. Alright, now that Elden Ring is at number 2, I'm sure you know what number 1 is. But before we get there, let's look at some honorable mentions. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. At number 1 is Who Pressed Mute on Uncle Marcus. Just the twists and turns in this game, okay, I couldn't keep a straight face while doing this. In all seriousness though, I'm not gonna beat around the bush anymore. Number 1 is God of War Ragnarok. I know you want to say that this game is just $60 DLC to God of War 2018, or it doesn't do enough to improve upon what 2018 did, but you, in my humble opinion, are wrong. God of War Ragnarok had an impossible task. This game had to follow up God of War 2018, one of the greatest games of all time, and somehow, someway, God of War Ragnarok even blows that game out of the water. It doesn't fix what isn't broken, and the very few things that were broken, it does fix. Not to mention, every single character is written to perfection. Kratos has possibly a top 3 greatest character arcs I've ever seen in any video game. He's come such a long way from how he was when he was wrecking shop in Olympus, and it works. Atreus really comes into his own in this game. Freya has an unexpectedly emotional and solid arc. They do so much more with Sindri and Brock, and it also gets unexpectedly emotional. And the theme about revenge, I've heard it being compared to The Last of Us Part 2 a lot. No, I feel like it was a lot more heavy-handed in Last of Us. In this, it is told to where it even has parallels to Kratos' old journey. Not to mention the combat feels incredible. Visually, it is one of the best looking games of this generation. Just God of War Ragnarok is a rare occasion where it's a sequel to a game that is as highly acclaimed as the 2018 God of War is, but manages to do everything its predecessor did, but better. That is a feat that cannot go uncelebrated. So God of War Ragnarok comes in at number 1. This was a tough list, but it, without question, was between God of War and Elden Ring, and it went to God of War for me. But yeah, I can't wait for 2023, you know, for video games. Seeing how 2023 is shaping up, this list might need to be a top 15. but we'll see about that. Anyways, what are your favorite games of this year? What are your top 10, top 5, whatever? Let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to come subscribe, or I will rip your Adam's apple out. Also, this is probably my final video of 2022, so I'll see you in 2023. Happy New Year, everyone, and thanks for watching throughout the year. Take care, but subscribe or I'll rip your Adam's apple out. Bye!